Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. Snowy Saturday morning here from the ETV Community Media Center. Here on the East Coast, we did get a little snow today, but before I get into any of the show today, just wanted to send my prayers and condolences to everyone out there in both New York and the Bronx, as well as out there in California with all the crazy fires that have been happening. A little bit of cold here in the snow. You know, it's not so bad. Perspective is a real thing. And my heart goes out to all the people that are suffering and losing homes and different things from those wildfires and whatever it was that was happening in the Bronx as well. It's truly a tragedy to see that kind of thing and to, have a roof over our heads and be thankful for what we have, as well as pray for those who have not. Speaking of California, though, three-time Cy Young winner Justin Verlander inked a one-year deal, $15 million with the Giants to join the rotation. The Giants have now brought in two Cy Young winners in Robbie Ray and Justin Verlander to go along with Logan Webb, their ace, as well as Jordan Hicks, who had a really good first half of the season last year as a converted reliever, and some young guys like Kyle Harrison, who are going to be in the mix all season in that rotation. And I really love this signing. Justin Verlander has literally nothing to prove in this league. I just said it, three-time Cy Young winner, and that alone usually gets you to the Hall of Fame. But one of those years, he also won the MVP and the pitching triple crown. He won another ERA title in his career. He's led the league in wins 4 separate times. He's led the league in innings pitched 5 different times. He's led the league in strikeouts 6 different times. And he's a guy who, in his career, 3.30 career ERA, 80.5 career WAR, 262 wins to 147 losses, over 100 more wins than losses. And I know in an injury-riddled year, he was 5-6 with a 5.48 ERA last year, negative 0.3 WAR in Houston. He's 42 years old. But the reason he is signing this deal is not just because he can get $15 million, but it's because Justin Verlander wants to compete, and Justin Verlander sees, the opportunity to etch his name in the history books as one of the greatest pitchers ever, because in today's modern game, since 2000, there's only about a dozen pitchers that have gotten 200 wins since the year 2000. And he has 262. Everyone's been saying for years, myself included, that the 300 win club is dead. No one will ever get there again with the way pitchers are being utilized. And Justin Verlander has said on multiple occasions that 300 wins means a lot to him, and he wants to go for it. And he'll pitch until the wheels fall off. Some people will say last year the wheels did fall off for Justin Verlander and that he is no longer his prime self. But pitching in a ballpark like San Francisco, a true pitcher's park, not having the pressure to be, the ace of a staff, pitching behind Logan Webb, I think it's a really, really good fit for Justin Verlander. And I'm not saying that he's going to, regain Cy Young or even all-star form, but he's going to compete. And like I've said with multiple people, Corbin Burns included, signing in the division of the Dodgers to play against them. I have a lot of respect for the players that are doing that, signing with the Diamondbacks, signing with the Padres, signing with the Giants. The Giants have had a nice offseason so far, highlighted by Willy Adames, biggest contract in franchise history. They've been tied to Pete Alonso, which was my prediction at the beginning of the offseason. And if they have an offseason where they sign Adames, Alonso, and Verlander, just name value alone, they're going to sell more tickets out there in the Bay. But I think those are 3 guys that have a lot left to give to the sport. And I'm excited to see Justin Verlander not only try to cement himself as, the only modern day pitcher to get 300 wins, but also, he knows he's already top 10 in career strikeouts, but he knows Max Scherzer is right behind him. And Max Scherzer looked a lot better than Justin Verlander did last year. So he wants to also hold off Max Scherzer so he can say, in my era, I had the most wins, I had the most strikeouts, I had the most innings, like all these things. He wants to be known as the man. He has that career and arc to it. So it's really, really fun to see that. And it's a really good question here. Over under 9 wins for Verlander in 2025, Jake. I'm just hoping that you get 20 starts out of the guy. I'm hoping for 20 starts, and for him to win 50% of those starts with the way pitchers are used. I don't I don't know what the odds would be of that, but I'm hoping he can put together around a 10-win season and exceed my expectations and start 25, 30 games. But it's going to be interesting to see with his health. What's great about Justin Verlander's situation is, like I said, he has nothing to prove. So if he has another negative WAR season with an ERA close to or exceeding 5, he could just hang things up and go into the Hall of Fame in 5 years. But if he's able to rebound and have 10 plus wins and close to 200 strikeouts and make a bunch of starts for a team in the wild card hunt, Verlander could pitch into his 40s. So it's going to be really exciting to see what Justin Verlander has left in the tank. I think he believes in himself. He's an ultimate competitor, and he wants to continue to compete and pad those stats. So I'm very, very excited to watch him in San Francisco. So my hope is 10 wins, so it's technically over from that mark of 9, but I think it's going to be very, very close to that number at the end of the year. Obviously, if he's able to rebound and make some crazy strides, it would be amazing. Multiple people out there on Twitter have put out that there's been 7 pitchers in their 40s to win the necessary 40-plus games that he would need to get 300 wins. He's 38 shy right now, and it's definitely possible. But he has to start strong, and instead of having 5 win seasons, he has to push more towards 10 the rest of the way to get there. So I'm very excited about that signing. I think the NL West has maybe the best pitching in a single division we've seen in a very long time. The Dodgers, they're very tied to Roki Sasaki, and the Padres are the second team tied to Roki Sasaki, so it seems like he's going to go out there as well. The Dodgers, having Blake Snell, having Tyler Glasnow, having Yoshinobu Yamamoto at the top of their rotation, Clayton Kershaw likely to be back in the fold as well to go along with guys like Bobby Miller and all the talent there in LA is ridiculous, of course. The Giants now, Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander, Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, and some really high-end prospects as well coming through the pipeline there. And the Padres, Michael King, without Joe Musgrove because of injury, but Michael King, Yu Darvish, Dylan Cease, they have a really good rotation. And, if they add Sasaki, that would be huge for them as well. And the Diamondbacks, obviously, signing Corbin Burns to go along with Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. Eduardo Rodriguez is still there, which nobody's talking about. He's a very, very good starter. Jordan Montgomery's still there until the Diamondbacks owner can find a place to put him. And, Brandon Pfaadt still has some potential there at the back of that rotation. So really, really tough sledding there, pitching before you even get into the lineups that are full of MVP candidates and former MVPs. The NL West is a juggernaut, and another Hall of Famer is added to the mix. Speaking of the West Coast, though, the Sacramento A's are spending. And they not only signed Luis Severino to a contract that was the highest in franchise history earlier this offseason. I talked about it. But now they've given Brent Rooker a 5-year, $60 million extension, which can be picked up to be a $90 million extension, which would be, the most money in a single contract ever given out by the A's. Why are they spending now? Is the question I've seen a lot of people asking. Well, one, spending is good for baseball. You don't want to see a small market team just letting the big fish go after every talented player. You want to see them try to be competitive and field a good roster, because once you get into the playoffs, as we've seen the last couple of years, anything can happen. So that's great. But the real reason the A's are spending is because their payroll was ridiculously low in 2024, and they don't want to basically get sued by the league for, malpractice and low payroll. So they need to get their team salary up to avoid those kind of hearings from Major League Baseball and, competitive bargaining tax and all those great things. So they are throwing money around at a bunch of, low to mid end guys. And I expect them to at least extend one or two more of their young nucleus of players that they have right there, whether that be Mason Miller or Lawrence Butler or JJ Bleday or Shea Langoliers. I expect some of those guys to get some money thrown at them too, just because the A's need to increase their payroll to avoid that. But it's still great to see that. Brent Rooker is a guy who has really broke out and been a perfect Oakland A and now Sacramento A in a lot of ways. A guy that was counted out and Moneyball and, comes out there and has a really, really good statistics as a hitter. He's been truly fantastic the last couple of years. And, a guy that he's mostly a DH, but him getting that long-term security, a guy that's made just over $1 million in his big league career to get a $60 million commitment from a team. It's really big win for him. I know a lot of people are saying that's cheap for Brent Rooker. And maybe if he got to the open market, but he still had 3 more years of arbitration where he would have made, around that $1 million figure each year. And now he's making a solid $12 million a year with the chance to make more if he hits certain performance things and the team opts into the extra years. So great for Brent Rooker. Great for Ace fans that they're throwing money around finally. I wish they would have done it while they were still in Oakland. I know a lot of people feel the same way, but the A's are spending, and it's mainly to keep them out of trouble. But they have spent more than a lot of other teams that are pretty bad in Colorado, in Miami, in Chicago with the White Sox. So a lot of good things there for the A's as they look to make a little bit of a splash there in Sacramento. During that little cup of coffee stop they're going to have. A guy that is criminally underrated, though, is Luis Arraez. Luis Arraez has played for 3 teams in the last 3 years, and he's won a batting title for all of them. He won a batting title for the Twins. He won a batting title for the Marlins. He gets traded midseason. He wins the batting title for the Padres. Holds on. Over Ohtani, who would have won the Triple Crown. Luis Arraez is a fantastic modern day hitter. And I understand he's a below average defender. I understand that he doesn't have any pop whatsoever. And I understand he doesn't walk. He is an old school slap ball hitter. And I see a lot of people comparing Luis Arraez to, all-time greats like Wade Boggs and Tony Gwynn. I don't think Luis Arraez is that level of player. But the player that I do want to compare Luis Arraez to, and I think he compares very favorably, is the fact that there was another multi-time batting champion that bounced around from teams, and that's Bill Madlock. Bill Madlock, 3-time All-Star, 4-time batting titles, 38.3 career WAR, 2,008 hits, 163 home runs, a 305 career hitter. He scored 920 runs in his career, and he drove in 860. He walked more than he struck out, which is the big difference between Arraez and him. And his OPS plus for his career was 123. If you look at Luis Arraez and the pace that he's currently on, it's the fact that in today's game, there's very few guys hitting over 300. Luis Arraez is one of 3 active players, minimum 600 or 700 at bats, that has a career average of 300. It's pretty sad, but that's the way the game is. And Luis Arraez has now won his 3rd straight batting title. He has 16 career WAR through 6 seasons. I talked about 38 WAR for Madlock, which was in 15 seasons. So about 3 times. If you do 3 times 16, that's 47, 48 WAR. So he has the potential to be a better Bill Madlock, a guy who I think should be in the Hall of Fame. 4 batting titles doesn't just happen by accident. There's a lot of guys like Alex Johnson and stuff throughout the years that win a batting title. But you don't win multiple batting titles by accident. You're an excellent, excellent hitter. And he's just not getting appreciated enough. And it's because of the era. It's because of the analytics. He was a one-WAR player in 2024. He only hit 4 home runs, but he hit 200 hits and 314 batting average. That's got to have value. And, he's not a fantastic second baseman, but how many times do a team assembling their team say we need the best defense possible at second base? Yes, you want good defense up the middle, but usually that's the catcher, that's the shortstop, that's the center fielder. So Luis Arraez at second base, he's not great, but he's not going to kill you. Luis Arraez has played some first base in his career, so he has the ability to, be platooned around. And there's a universal DH in this sport where teams are trotting out guys that are batting below the Mendoza line because they slug higher than Luis Arraez. This man deserves to have a commitment from a team. Let him be a table setter hitting first or second in your lineup. I would hit him second personally because he doesn't walk. If he walked more, he'd be the ideal leadoff hitter for any team. But I'd hit him second. And the reason I do that is because you have your highest on base guy first. Your guy that can steal bases first. Luis Arraez can move him over by getting hits or bring him home. And then you have the sluggers behind them with 2 guys that can get on base in different ways. And I think that's just not getting talked about enough. Luis Arraez has been in trade rumors again as the Padres look to just dump salary. Nobody wants him, man. It's like the Will Smith thing. How come he don't want me, man? Luis Arraez is one of the best contact hitters in the sport. And a fantastic point again. Can you imagine him in an elite lineup? He'd score 130 runs. If he was a table setter hitting second, for a dominant team, as opposed to the Twins and the Marlins, and I know he played half a season with the Padres. He played in 117 games with the Padres last year, and he scored 61 runs. That's more than he scored in 2021 with the Twins in 121 games. So, 200 hits, back-to-back seasons, 3 straight batting titles. He is a truly, truly amazing guy that I don't understand why people don't want him at the top of your lineup. I understand him not being, the slot-in leadoff hitter. He doesn't steal bags. He doesn't walk enough. But what's wrong with moving guys over? What's wrong with putting the ball in play? Which is what he does, because you're like, oh, he doesn't walk. His on-base percentage for his career is only 50 points higher than his batting average of 323 as a career hitter. His OPS plus for his career is 118, very comparable to Bill Madlock's 123. But the man does not strike out. His career high in strikeouts for a season is 48. He struck out 29 times last year. He puts the ball in play, even if he's not getting a hit. And there's value to that, especially in a league now where the shift is outlawed. I hope Luis Arraez gets appreciated by somebody someday. I think it's going to be the Hall of Fame. I don't think it's going to be Major League Baseball because of the way analytics are. But it's crazy to me that nobody wants a 3-time batting title guy. Now, I haven't heard any reports of this, but it's possible that he's a terrible clubhouse guy. He looks like he's having fun out there. He looks like the teammates like him, but we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. But that's the only thing that could really explain it to me, because I don't care what his WAR is. I don't care that he doesn't walk enough. It would be nice if he walked a little bit more with the eye that he has for the strike zone. But he's never going to be a guy that leads the league in walks. But he is a guy that's going to be towards the league in hits, win at least one more batting title in his career to match Madlock. And I think when you have revisionist history, hindsight's 2020, you look back at this era where a lot of guys' career batting average is below 250 and his is over 300 with multiple batting titles. People are going to think That's a Hall of Famer. But he's not getting appreciated like that today. Here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we have to throw it back down the third baseline to this day in baseball history. And there was actually a shocking amount of things that happened on January 11th. You would think this is a pretty quiet time of the year for baseball, but to me, it was really easy to pick what happened today. And it's because on this date in 2005, the Arizona Diamondbacks trade 5-time Cy Young winner Randy Johnson to the New York Yankees in a 3-team deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers, which also moved former video game cover athlete Sean Green, Javier Vasquez and Dioner Navarro, in the transaction. Arizona received Javier Vasquez and Dioner Navarro and Brad Halsey, and Navarro and 3 prospects were sent to the Dodgers for Green, who went to the Yanks. The reason I bring this up is because of the reason we started the show. And Justin Verlander is trying to get to 300 career wins. I think that's his number one goal. His second goal is to have more strikeouts in his career than Max Scherzer. He also wants to win championships, but with the performance he had in 2024, no real title contenders were going to sign him in 2025. Randy Johnson's one of those 7 pitchers that won over 40 games after the age of 40. And when he was traded to the Yankees at age 41, he had back-to-back 17-win seasons with the Yanks, returned to Arizona, went 4-3 in a more injury-plagued season where he only started 10 games. Then he started 30 games for Arizona in 2008, went 11-10. And he finished his career up in San Francisco, going 8-6. Just because a pitcher is over the age of 40 doesn't mean he has nothing to offer a team. And Randy Johnson still clearly had stuff in the tank. And I know a lot of people are going to say, Randy Johnson's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. The big unit wasn't human. He killed a bird with a pitch. Justin Verlander is, a upper tier Hall of Fame pitcher, a guy who's defied the odds. He's already in his career came back from looking like he was over the hill and won Cy Young Awards, won championships. I think he's still got something left in the tank. And Randy Johnson showed that on this day in 2005 that he was not done. Justin Verlander is going to show it here in 2025, 2 decades later, that he is not done. There have been a lot of under-the-radar moves that have happened outside of Justin Verlander. One from the thumbnail is Chris Martin signing with the Texas Rangers. He's a Texas native and a guy who has had a really nice little run here as a setup guy, high-leverage reliever for multiple teams, including my Boston Red Sox the last couple seasons. Now, in his career, he only has 7.8 WAR, but he's a guy that had a rough year last year at Boston, but the previous 2 years in Boston and LA, 1.46 ERA, 1.05 ERA, ERA plus of 2.79 in LA and 4.34 in 2023 with Boston. He's done this before too in his career, 2020 with the Atlanta Braves, smaller sample size, obviously a 4.75 ERA plus. His career ERA plus is 1.34. This is a high impact, high leverage reliever to help replace David Robertson from that Rangers bullpen. The Rangers overall have had a very under the radar offseason. I talked about it. It was one of the first moves of the offseason. The Rangers trading for Jake Berger, who is likely to be the opening day first baseman now with the trade of Nathaniel Lowe to Washington. That happened as well, which I think is a nice move for them as well. The Nationals getting some veteran leadership, a guy that's been there in a title run before. The Rangers re-signed Eovaldi this offseason. They brought in Jock Peterson to their lineup, a guy who just crushes right-handed pitching, a really good left-handed bat. They've had a very under-the-radar offseason, and that's the reason I'm wearing this Ranger shirt today. A lot of people have talked this offseason about the Astros, how they traded Kyle Tucker, how they're shopping Framber Valdez. They just lost Justin Verlander. Alex Bregman looks everything but out of there. That's a lot of, to talk about what their impact is on the field, but also in the clubhouse. That's a lot of leadership leaving. And the Rangers, a team that missed the postseason last year after winning the World Series, they have the same core lineup pretty much that they won the World Series with. They have 3 young players that I think still haven't hit their peaks in Josh Young, Evan Carter, and Wyatt Langford. Their starting rotation is going to be more healthy. Jacob deGrom's coming back, and I think when he pitches is going to be fantastic. And adding impact guys like Chris Martin in the back end of the bullpen, the Rangers are going to be right back in this thing. And it's not because they signed a $500 million contract. It's because of these little chess moves, these little under-the-radar moves that the Rangers have made, I think are going to bring them right back to postseason glory in 2025. Now, some other under-the-radar moves. Like I said, the Rangers did trade Nathaniel Lowe over to the Washington Nationals. He's going to be playing first base there and platooning a little bit. So it's going to be really good for that young group of players to have a guy who has Gold Glove defense over at first base and also has that championship pedigree. Everything I've seen about Nathaniel Lowe from interviews and teammates is all positive. He's a good guy. In that clubhouse, he just was coming up towards free agency, and the Rangers did not want to extend him. But it's all about these small moves. We're still waiting for Alex Bregman to sign. There's still a few, bigger name guys like Nolan Arenado that are going to get traded. But it's the under the radar moves. It's these small moves that are going to make the difference between playoff teams and non-playoff teams. And perfect examples of that are teams that are doing the right thing. Michael Lorenzen getting signed. Martin Perez getting signed by the Chicago White Sox. Not only are they securing innings for their pitching staffs to start the season, but on top of that, they are getting pieces very cheaply right now that they'll be able to get a legitimate high upside prospect from another team at the trade deadline. I said it last year. Why are all these good pitchers still out there? At the very least, you can trade them at the deadline to a team like the Atlanta Braves that needs pitching. But it's really, really fun to see these little moves because you don't have to sign Jack Flaherty or Nick Pivetta. But every team is going to have injuries in the starting rotation. So sign those innings now instead of paying prospect capital for it later. It's always just boggled my mind that teams don't do it this way. And it is truly, truly amazing. Watch the moves that are happening here in between the lines. The big headlines are going to be Alex Bregman signs a big contract here. Nolan Arenado gets traded to this team. Jack Flaherty inks a 5-year deal with this team. But read between the lines. There's still a ton of impact free agents out there that are going to make differences, not just for 2025 team performance, but helping the team's futures when they get high upside prospects for those cheap innings. Especially with what the pitching market has been. All the good pitchers have been getting very big money. Sign these lower impact arms. Sign them. You're going to need them eventually, and you'd have to pay more for them later, to me. I'd rather pay money than pay prospects for guys that aren't elite. That's always my kind of rationale and fundamentals looking at teams, and that's why I was excited about the Garrett Crochet trade. That's the kind of guy you give up top prospects for. The guy's 25 years old, coming off the season he's coming off of with the stuff he has. That's the kind of guy that you trade those big prospects for. But when you just need innings from James Shields and you trade a Fernando Tatis Jr., that's where I'm not saying every single one of these trades is going to be that, but you have the opportunity for something like that. And it's a very overlooked part of the market. I would sign a bunch of those guys to my team if my team had no shot of competing. One, it makes it look like I'm trying to field a competitive roster and fill my starting rotation. Two, I have trade chips to just take dart throws at prospects come July. I appreciate each and every one of you that was watching here in the chat. Jake, Hugo, Will, everyone. Thank you so much for spending part of your Saturday here on the show. If you liked what you had to hear today, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, like the video, and share it with a friend who loves the sport of baseball as much as we do. I'll continue to update you as we go through the offseason here. Hall of Fame elections coming up, more signings and trades yet to happen as we push towards spring training of the 2025 Major League Baseball season. Hope you guys all have a fantastic Solo Shot Saturday and amazing week for those of you that listen afterwards. I'm Dom Manna, and I'll see you guys next week.